Hey guys, welcome to my Samoan language instruction on infinitives and negative imperatives or commands. Here's some vocabulary words for you and let's get started. So infinitives, you've done this a million times by now, and now I'm just kind of clarifying what you've been doing up until this point. An infinitive is a special verb formed marked by the word to, and basically you're using to run, to sing, to eat. So it's some kind of verb that has the word to before it. That is an infinitive, and we're just going to basically be clarifying what you've been doing up to this point. And there's other forms of the word to. We've talked about that in other videos. There's prepositional tos all over, and we've talked about that in prior videos. But now we're just kind of clarifying the infinitive version of to. So in Samoan, infinitives are usually marked by the habitual tense marker a. And so if you ever want to use like a to in some kind of verb, you normally use the habitual tense marker a. And again, that habitual tense marker oftentimes just takes place of the present tense. So I mean, we can use olo'o, but so we could use olo'o, but the a takes precedence over that anymore, just probably because it's quicker. Anyway, so let's get moving on. So they wanted to go, and what we're learning about in this video is this to go. The go is a verb, and the to that's right before it. And then what I will point out is this to right after it. This is not what we're learning in this video. We've learned this form of the to in our other videos. But sa lato mananao, so they wanted to go to Samoa. The way that I would say that is sa lato mananao, and this verb right here, mananao, you need it to be a plural verb because it's multiple people doing the wanting. And then the ao, this ao, so the o is the plural form of go, and the a right before it is that habitual tense marker, and basically that's just saying to go. And this isn't always the case, but if you ever want to use some kind of verb with the word to, it's normally going to be the habitual tense marker a. And then the to right after, this is a different form of to. This is a prepositional to, showing you the location of where this is taking place or where they want to go. And that would be e. We've learned that in other videos. Okay, so I instructed the boy to prepare, and again, this is what we're learning in this video, the food. So sa'o fa'atonuina litama e sauni le me'ai. So this right here, sauni. Just remember the a has a macron on it. I don't have it, just so that you kind of get used to it. You're not going to see the macron on that word a lot, I would presume. The a right before it is just the way that we include that infinitive. Okay, hopefully this is making sense. The infinitive following some verbs, especially fa'amoy moi, alu, and o, is sometimes marked by te rather than a. So again, you can use the habitual tense marker a, and that's what's normally going to happen. But sometimes you can use the tense marker te, depending on what sentence structure you're using. And that's just something that you're going to need to remember based on descriptive pronouns or emphatic. So moving on, I was hoping to receive a gift. So to receive, that's our infinitive. And so basically, sa'o fa'amoy moi o te, right? So I have to receive is o te maua. And in this case, you could do it another way. You could say a maua. A maua, and then I'm going to write down here, a'u. You could do that, and that just sounds a little funny. O te maua makes a little bit more sense, so that's the one that I'm going to go with. And again, you can use that as long as you're using a descriptive pronoun, and that's what that is. So moving on, a gift is se mea lofa. Are you two going to bathe? So to bathe is kind of our infinitive, and in this next sentence is lua te o ma ta ele. So te o is going to be, and in this case, we have the bathe at the end of the sentence, and that's the same in Samoan. But the way our sentence structure works with descriptive pronouns is we have our subject, right? And then we have our te, if we are using it in the te tense, and then our verb goes right after it. And so that becomes the infinitive right there instead of at the end like it is in English. Hopefully that is making sense to you. So moving on to the next page. No tense marker is used with infinitives following the verbs iloa, fia, and lava. And lava is probably a new word that you have come across, and that means to fill up to or tired if you say lay lava. So if I say lay lava, then that means you're tired or you don't fill up to it. But if it's just lava, it's to fill up to. Okay, so do you want to know how to read? And again, if you do use a tense marker after these verbs, it's going to be completely fine. It's just a small little thing. Okay, it's not going to throw off your whole sentence. Don't worry about it too much. I'm just saying that if you ever come across a sentence with these verbs and you notice that there's not a tense marker after it, you know why. So do you know how to read? Our infinitive right here is going to be to read. Okay, and again, do you know how to read? We say that differently in English than we do in Samoan. And so the way that I would say that in Samoan, it's going to be a little bit different. So to read is the infinitive in English, but the way that my sentence structure works in Samoan, it would be e te iloa would be the infinitive, just because no, this verb right here comes before the read. Okay, there's two different verbs here, and this is kind of saying that I have two verbs here, e te iloa, that's my verb 1, and then faitau is my verb 2. And basically, if I have two verbs, they kind of piggyback off this one. Sorry, this isn't I'm going to put a apostrophe right there to emphasize that it's a U. But they're both basically going to piggyback off of this tense marker right here, this te. So you don't need to put an e te iloa e faitau. It's a little redundant. You can just piggyback off that te is what we're basically trying to emphasize here. So pe e te iloa faitau tusi is the way that you would say, do you know how to read? They wanted to go to Samoa, and this and this is going to be kind of the same case. Want is going to end up being my infinitive in Samoan, but in English, the infinitive would be to go, right? It's to go. But the way that I would say that in Samoan, it's a little bit different. It's they want, okay? So I have my subject, and then I have my te, and then I have the first verb. So this is the tense marker, and then then the second verb. So this is verb 1, and this is verb 2. So the second verb and the first verb just piggyback off that first tense marker, and that right here just becomes the whole infinitive. And if you wanted to, you could think of the whole thing as being a combined infinitive. But just remember, when you have two verbs, the infinitive might change depending on your sentence structure, and that's true in this case because I have two verbs and I need to choose which one goes first. And the nice thing is that it stays the same order. You'll note that in our first sentence we had no as our first verb, and that came first, and then read was our second verb, and that came right after it. So although the infinitive location changes, if you stick to your basic sentence structures and just stick to whichever verb, and this isn't probably all the cases, but this is what comes to mind, is normally it's going to be the same way. So basically what I'm saying is this want right here comes first, so that will come first, and then go came second, so then go will go after. Let's see if that works. In the next one, I'm tired of working. Tired comes first, and then working comes second. Tired comes first, and then working comes second. So, and again, that might not hold true in all cases, but for every case that I can think of off the top of my head, that's what holds true. Maybe I'll prove myself wrong in this video, but I'll try to make a clarification if that's true. I'll just say it's an exception. Here's some practice sentences, so hopefully you're starting to understand. I would encourage you to pause the video at this point and try to translate these two sentences. Okay, hopefully you did that, and here are the answers. And just out of curiosity, do they have two verbs, come and read? So let's see how that turns out. And in this case, to read, there's no, it doesn't change the infinitive like it does before. So, ia sao ile fale a onga, he has come to the school to read some books. It's almost like two different thoughts into one sentence. So the infinitive stays the same in that case, even though there are multiple verbs. Okay, we too are tired of listening to his speech. So let's see. So normally I would mark my infinitive with an A, but in this case you'll remember that I put there's three verbs normally that you don't have to use the tense marker a or te after it. Okay, and so iloa, fia, and lava, those are ones that you don't have to use a tense marker. So normally I would use my a to mark the infinitive, but in this case my verb comes right after one of these other verbs, and I don't need to use the a to mark the infinitive. So we too are tired, so this is the first verb, and then listening is the second. So le lava va, this is a plural way of saying it. And if you said lava, I would have been really happy, but just note that when there's multiple amounts of people being tired or not feeling up to something, then you just use lava va, you add a syllable to that. So then normally I would have an A come right after this, and if you put an A after the fa'alongo, it's going to be totally fine. They're going to understand. It just know that you don't need to put the A right there. Okay, so that's all I'm saying. If you put the A there, it's fine. They're going to understand you just fine. And then to his, this is a different kind. This isn't an infinitive. This is kind of acting as a preposition. Ilana launga. Okay? So that is the first part of the video, and then the imperatives are going to be the second. And these are a little bit more tricky, not too bad. So negative commands, that's basically what imperatives are in Samoan, are formed with awa, and that means don't, and soia, that means stop. These generally come at the beginning of the sentence. They may also be preceded by the insistent imperative marker ia or ya, depending on who's saying it and how it's being said, or the deferential imperative marker say. And then the use of tense markers in any type of imperative is limited. So I have this one right here. There's two others after this, so there's two other forms, and they're all pretty similar, and you don't have to memorize. I put this box here just to kind of give you a general format. I don't expect you to memorize this like I do the sentence structures, but just to kind of give you some format. So, again, the use of tense markers in these types of sentences is limited. You're not going to see a lot of that because they are commands. And remember, in our commands, not our negative commands, we're talking about negative commands right here, but just in our commands, we usually omitted the, I don't know if that's a word, but we usually omitted the tense markers. So here is the first one. I just want to kind of show you. You're going to have these imperative markers. So depending on if it's going to be insistent, that would be the ia or the ya. And then the say, that's the more deferential, the more soft spoken one. Then you can say soia or awa, depending on if you want to say stop or don't. And then I'm going to have a descriptive pronoun. In these cases, I'm going to use descriptive pronouns. And then my predicate is going to come right after that because that's how descriptive pronouns work. They come before the predicate and then whatever comes after that. So it's almost like taking away the tense marker and replacing it with these things. And depending on which one you want, say soia or ya awa or vice versa, it's up to you. So don't you two worry about a thing. So if I wanted to say don't, then I would say soia. All right. Or sorry, that's stop. Awa is don't. And again, if I wanted to, I can add these. If I don't have to. But don't is awa, and then you too is lua in the descriptive format. And then I'm using a te because of the descriptive pronoun. And then my predicate is going to be my popole, and that means worry as well. And then about a thing is isemea. All right, moving on. Again, I'm saying don't, so I'm going to use awa. And then don't you be mad at me. If I wanted to, I could take that out, but I don't have to. I could just say don't be mad at me, but in this case, I'm going to include it. But just know that right here, if I wanted to, I could take it out. But actually, no, I'm going to take that back. In this case, I would rather that you used the you, just because it sounds more natural, and I can't really explain why in this case. But we'll give some examples of when you can take out the subject or the doer. Okay, so don't. This is awa, and in this case, I'm including a imperative marker, so it's more of a command. Yeah, awa, and then you right here is a and kind of the te, and then be mad is the ita, at me is yateao. Okay, hopefully that's making sense. Let's move on. And there's some practice sentences. I encourage you to pause the video at this point and actually work on these. You're not going to get any better if you don't work on these guys. Okay, so here's the answers, and if you got anything close to this, I am going to applaud and ask you to pat yourselves on the back. Okay, moving on to the second form of imperatives, negative imperatives, is that I can simply place a word lay, and I'm really sorry, but this word right here should be in red, and I'm sorry that I neglected to see that. But yeah, lay can come after awa or soia, and these descriptive pronouns are not normally used with this pattern, so I'm going to start using emphatic pronouns with this a little bit more. So this is the difference with negative imperatives 1 and 2. The first one I used descriptive pronouns. Okay, I used descriptive pronouns and there was no lay. And the second one I used emphatic pronouns and I have a lay. So that's one thing, that's one pattern that you need to recognize. And so let's just kind of go over a couple other things. So the other thing is, if it's obvious from the context, then the doer or the subject may be omitted from the sentence. So don't be late again. I don't have a subject in that English sentence. And again, I don't have to put that in Samoan either. Awa le toi tuai. So I just completely took out my subject. Normally the subject would come right after that lay. It would come, we're using emphatic pronouns, so I need to correct that. Normally that would come after the tuai because my predicate is the tuai. So I have my predicate, which is toi tuai, and then my noun phrase doer or my subject, my emphatic pronoun, or a noun could be doing something, but I'm just taking it out because it's obvious from the context that you're talking to the person. Whoever you're talking to, you're telling them not to be late. Don't you pray in this room? So if I wanted to, I could say you, but again, I'm just going to take that out. So say soia, so I'm using that one and I'm using that one. So stop I'm saying don't. I keep wanting to use stop, but I'm not. I'll do that the next one. Say awa, and then lay comes next, and then my predicate, and then my noun phrase doer. This is not in that sentence, and this room is the predicate phrase, wherever the place is taking place, wherever the sentence is taking place. Moving on, stop the talking or making noise. This one's kind of easy. You're just whoever you're talking to. So, ia le pisa. That's just a quick way of saying stop talking or stop making noise, whichever one you prefer. And again, in this case, I end with the predicate phrase as the pisa, but it's obvious that I don't need a noun phrase doer. It's whoever you're talking to. So here's some example sentences, practice sentences. I would encourage you to pause the video at this point and translate those. Okay, here is the answers. Hopefully you got something like that. And moving on. If you really wanted to, you could take this U3 plus out if it's obvious by the context of that you're telling everyone not to sleep. But if you want to really emphasize, yeah, you need to tell all of them that to not sleep. Okay, the third and last negative imperative. This is something that the particle ne'i follows awa. So any type of subject or doer may be used, and ne'i follows awa. The doer may be omitted provided that the context makes it clear who the subject is. So kind of like the last one, I can take out the subject or doer if it's clear from the context who I'm talking about. So ia is not normally used with this pattern, and study the following. So I'm just going to go over the pattern real quick. Again, I can use one of those markers, and then the awa ne'i comes, and then I can have one of two ways. I can do the descriptive pronoun, predicate phrase, and then whatever comes after, usually a prepositional phrase, or I can do the predicate phrase, so that would take that out, then my subject, which is usually going to be an emphatic pronoun or some name of person, so a noun, and then etc. So that can happen one of two ways. And let's kind of look at these example sentences. So don't take that car. I am neglecting the subject in this case, and I don't have a descriptive pronoun either. Those are basically the same things. So don't take that car, and I'm taking out these as well. So I'm starting with awa ne'i, and then I'm moving to my predicate phrase, which is here, which is ave, and then etc., which is usually going to be that car or the object, in this case, lena ta vale, which is my etc., which is an object in this case, the thing receiving the action. Okay, don't you be late to class, and if I wanted to, I can add the pronoun or the subject, or I can leave it out. Yeah, awa ne'i, so I'm using this ya, awa ne'i, and then I can use a descriptive pronoun, which is right here, which is you, and then tuai is my predicate, and then etc. is the prepositional phrase, ile vasenga to class. All right, moving on to the last example sentence. Don't you 3+ sleep in the temple? I'm just taking these out altogether in this case, and again, that's optional if you want to do that. Awa ne'i comes first. Then I'm using a descriptive pronoun. Or no, sorry, I'm going to be doing this case, so I'm taking out the descriptive pronoun. Momoi is acting as the predicate, and then my subject, which is oto. And then, again, I don't need a predicate phrase when I do that, because I've already said the predicate, which is momoi, the plural version of sleep. And then the etc. is the prepositional phrase ile malo malo sa, which is in the temple. Okay, so that is everything in the video. I have some practice sentences right here. I encourage you to pause the video right there. And here are the answers. So I hope you were able to get these, guys. And there was a lot of information in this video, but it wasn't as complicated as some of the other videos. So I'm hoping that you were able to understand. And again, this is probably going to take a couple times watching and actually practicing the practice sentences. And I'm going to start trying to implement more listening into the program because I feel like you need to start listening more if you already haven't. If you haven't already, that's what I was looking for, started listening to lots of Samoan. I'm going to try to implement that a little bit more. But until next time, guys, tofa soifua.